Everything was planned by Mao Zedong as early as 1949. Following the then recent victory of the Communist Revolution, Mao revived China's old imperial ambitions to impose its sovereignty on Tibet. He was not concerned by historical realities, or that the country had been governed for centuries by the Dalai Lamas. The first phase of the Maoist initiative was simple: to force the Tibetan authorities to admit that the Chinese forces marching upon their country were not an army of conquerors, but an army of liberation from Western imperialism.
When Chinese army entered 1950 in the Tibetan area under Dalai Lama's government's jurisdiction, the Chinese army already crushed around 7,000 to 8,000 Tibetan soldiers. Tibetan army, all crushed. So then the Chinese army can go up to Lhasa without any resistance. But then the Chinese leadership, they stop the Chinese army on eastern part of autonomous region of Tibet, the Chamdo area, stop there. Then the discussion about agreement is started. Although that agreement, according sort of expert, that also is an agreement signed under duress.
When the 17-point agreement was signed on May 17, 1951, Tibet lost Amdo, the Dalai Lama's native province, and Kham, which were both annexed by the Chinese. Reduced to its western portion, Tibet retained an autonomous government and its social and religious traditions. A minor concession for Mao, who'd obtained what he wanted. Tibet was declared liberated and not annexed to show that it had always been Chinese. From this point on, any criticism of China's policy in Tibet would be condemned as interference in the internal politics of the country. The first phase of Mao's plan was complete.
It was a very clear, untruthful statement that Tibet was always a part of China, which is not true. And even 1950 and 1951, they themselves admits that they have liberated up to Chamdo by military force. And then thereafter they liberated the Tibet by peaceful means through negotiation and this so-called 17-point agreement. That means at that time Tibet was separate from the PRC. And apart from that, the border settlements with British India in 1913 and 14, China and Tibet and British India, they were participated equally.
According to many experts, international legal experts, they state formally that when Chinese Liberation Army entered to Tibet in 1950, then Tibet was de facto independent nation.
Mao was perfectly aware of this, but no matter. He had obtained Tibet's surrender and the Dalai Lama posed no further threat to him. The power of this young man of 17 was limited to the religious sphere, and as a good Marxist, Mao trusted in his propaganda to wean the Tibetans away from their living Buddha. The Chinese army continued its progress towards Lhasa in a peaceful march that the Chinese news broadcast to their people. It was with more curiosity than animosity that the Tibetan population, isolated from the world for centuries, watched the arrival of these strange invaders posing as liberators.
这是个荒凉的地方，人民解放军在走向拉萨的途上种树，在挖开的每一个坑里都撒下了树木的种子，将来这里将变成一片美丽的树林。文工团员们跳起了藏族的弦子舞，拉萨城下顿时响起了一片歌舞声。西藏 地方政府的重要僧俗官员、各大寺院的喇嘛代表、西藏地方军队都到了拉萨郊外列队欢迎。